Hi there. It's March 31st, and we're continuing our journey through the good news of Luke, and we're in chapter 9, reading from verses 7 to verse 37. Herod the Tetrarch, who is the ruler of Judea at this time, hears that Jesus is doing amazing things, and he is puzzled, he's perplexed, because he's had John the Baptist beheaded, and it sounds like John the Baptist has come back from the dead. The people are saying that Jesus is a prophet like Elijah, and he's puzzled and he wants to see Jesus, he wants to get hold of him. So Jesus, in a sense, is in danger because he's now being pursued by this very voracious ruler. And so Jesus goes with his disciples and goes to a place a bit more apart, the Bethsaida, and moves away from the general populace. But people want to be near him. They want to be with this amazing teacher. They want to be with this amazing man who sees the power of God come. So they follow him. And they follow him in such numbers that they're crowding around him. And Jesus teaches them about God being king. But then, of course, they're with him for a long time. There's no shops around. There's no markets around. There's no one selling bread, making bread. And they're in trouble. And Jesus then says to his disciples, give them something to eat. Well, the disciple says, we've only got 5 loaves and 2 fishes. How are we going to feed all these people? So Jesus does something very significant. He sits them down, first of all, in groups of 50. Now, there is a symbolism here. There's an echo of something that is past. First of all, it looks back to the time when Israel is in the desert. These are the people here are in a desert place, and just as Israel was in the desert, and 50 is an important number because it has to do with the organization into 50s that Moses did of Israel, so that he wasn't carrying all the responsibility for himself, but delegated the responsibility to others. So Jesus has them sat down in 50s. And then, of course, this miracle of the breaking of the bread happens, and everyone is fed and satisfied. Again, this is redolent, this is an echo of the manna in the wilderness, of the bread from heaven, the bread that came down and fed everybody. There's a very strong connection here with the Hebrew scriptures. And then lastly, they take up 12 baskets of leftovers. The number 12 is always significant. It has to do with Israel. It has to do with the promise of God. And so the 12 baskets are taken up. And this is God's extravagance. After all, they only started with 5 loaves and 2 fishes. And God's abundant giving is seen here. It's no wonder that when Jesus comes to the prayer that begins at Our Father, he says, give us today our more than essential bread. This is God of the overbless. This is God of the overgive. So they take up 12 baskets. Everyone's been satisfied. Then, when Jesus is praying, his disciples come to him. Now remember that people are saying that Jesus is a prophet, that Jesus is John the Baptist, come back from the dead, he's Elijah. And now Jesus, in prayer, alone with his disciples, now away from the crowds, asks his disciples, who do you say I am? And Peter has this revelation from God that Jesus is the Messiah. He is the one who is anointed. He is the Son of the living God. And as he says this, Jesus then reveals something of his calling, something of what he's intending to do. He is going to Jerusalem. He's going to be given over to the authorities, who will have him crucified, but he will rise again the 3rd day. And not only that, but Jesus says, if you're following me, you can also expect the same thing. I am going to experience suffering to go through to resurrection. You also are going to find this a costly road if you follow me. If you want to follow me, you're going to have to take up your cross as well. After all, what is it going to profit anybody if they gain everything, if they gain all the stuff, but actually it costs them their own soul? And so Jesus puts to them this very costly road of discipleship. So we've seen in this reading something amazing happening, this high of the feeding of the 5,000, this provision of the bread from heaven, as it were, but also we see this costly way that Jesus is taking as Messiah, Son of God. He is the one who is going to take up his cross and go to death and then to resurrection, and he invites his disciples to do the same in following him. Let's be sure and choose to follow Jesus today, to give ourselves to him, to whom to know is eternal life. Have a very good March the 31st.